Hello and welcome back to the UCLA Bruins Insider Podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Ferguson, writer for UCLA on SI. Today we're going to be taking a look at three potential transfer portal targets for the Bruins this offseason. Addressing those holes that are left following, multiple senior departures. But before we get started, I want to thank everyone who is watching right now, Apple Music, Spotify, or even YouTube. It all means a lot to me and I cannot thank you enough. Without further ado, let's get right into it. So to kind of recap and kind of understand what exactly UCLA kind of needs to work on and fix, obviously the guard position will be a little bit weak for UCLA next season. You got to remember Sky Clark. He is probably going to leave. I know he applied for that 5th year of eligibility, but it doesn't look like he has that much of a case to be able to get granted that year. Donovan Dent, he's going to be a senior, so he's graduating. So again, you're losing two big pieces of your guard room. Right now, UCLA is left with, Eric Freeney, and then obviously Trent Perry, who's been great for the Bruins. And there's not a lot of other playmakers that UCLA has, at that guard position. So that is definitely going to be a place where UCLA can improve and get in the transfer portal. Obviously, we talked about wanting to get, a bigger center, a rebound specialist, a guy who is tall. Last year, we had Tyler Bilodeau, who is also leaving as he is a senior. And just Steven Jamerson, he's also a guy who is, kind of fills in for that center role. We will have Xavier Booker next season, but as we've seen throughout the season, he can't really be that reliable at the center position. He is definitely a more offensive weapon for the Bruins, but we need a defensive player for UCLA to kind of, allow the team to find a more steady and consistent, stuff going on for the Bruins. It's going to be exciting to see what exactly happens. And then I also wanted to, talk about getting a scoring threat, a guy who's going to give us 20 points per game. It could be a guard, forward, preferably a guard, because again, Tyler Bilodeau leaving, that's 17 points out of your forward room, and it's going to be hard. Obviously, Eric Daly Jr. will kind of be there next season to kind of help, ease that, departure. But again, you still want another high-scoring forward or a guard. There's a lot of places where you can mix and match if you want to go the guard route. Obviously, Trent Perry, I feel like, could be that high-scoring guard, but you want to complement him with someone who can, be a pass first. And again, it goes vice versa. Trent Perry could also be that court general, or, and then you can get that high scoring point guard. But as far as, the transfers that I've seen, who I feel like UCLA has the best chance, the first one is going to be Isaiah Johnson. He's a point guard. He just hit the portal. He came from the Colorado Buffaloes. Last season, he averaged 16.9 points per game, 2.9 rebounds, 2.0 assists, while shooting 48.6% from the field. That is a good stat line, and it should be mentioned he is a freshman. So again, that is going to be huge for the Bruins to develop and make him better if he can, if UCLA is able to seal the deal. Obviously, a 17 point per game scorer, freshman, is going to be highly sought after in the portal. So where does UCLA find that edge? I think it's from his hometown. He's a Los Angeles native. I'm sure he is very familiar with the UCLA brand. And that could, easily allow him to come to Westwood if, the offer is right. Obviously, NIL, it's a bidding war now. But I think if Isaiah Johnson is going to be able to become a Bruin, there'd be a lot of things that would have to happen, right? Like I said, a lot of, poor offers on the other side. I mean, we know how good he is. And then obviously Mick Cronin pitching a good deal. And the thing that's sketchy about Mick Cronin, I'll always kind of stress this, is that, players want to play for coaches who are not angry or upset all the time. And that's what Cronin kind of brings. We know he's a good coach. We know he can connect with the players, but, in recruiting, if you're a coach and you are, somewhat you are under a bad light in the media and in the world and in general, odds are recruits are going to look the other way. I don't like that that's the fact, but again, these are sensitive topics for recruits. If they, get an offer from USC, another LA team, they're going to want to go there if they know their coach is going to be, not upset and angry all the time and yelling. But again, that's just how it works. But looking besides that, I think if we get Isaiah Johnson, like I mentioned earlier, I think he'll be that, scoring threat for the Bruins. I think that'll move Trent Perry to, that point guard position. Maybe he's the guy who gets, 7+ assists per game. I don't really see Isaiah Johnson being that guy. I mean, 2.0 assists. He's not necessarily a court general, but he's a damn good scorer. So that's why UCLA really needs to kind of look at Johnson and really try to pin him down in Westwood. The next guy, another recent transfer portal guy. We got Miles Bird. He's a 6'6" shooting guard, so he could potentially move to that forward position if needed. I think that would be a good thing. He's coming from San Diego State. His hometown's in Stockton, California. So again, another California guy. But what makes him so special is he was the Mountain West Defensive Player of the Year. And obviously Mountain West is not necessarily on the same level as, the Big Ten, SEC, schools like that. But the bottom line is UCLA needs more defensive help, and getting a Defensive Player of the Year of the Mountain West is going to work out well. I mean, we got Donovan Dent last season from the Mountain West, and that paid off decently. But again, I think Bird being a defensive specialist, I think that gives UCLA a huge boost overall. And last season, 10.4 points per game, 4.7 rebounds, shot 40.5% from the field. Pretty good stats, all things considered. I mean, again, just going to be a guy who UCLA cannot afford to miss out on. UCLA needs that defense. That was obviously their Achilles heel. I mean, Mick Cronin is probably, really looking to get this guy. I mean, he's a defensive head coach. Defense is his identity as a coach, and that's why he's been able to have a lot of good runs in the past. It's because of that good UCLA defense. I think Miles Bird will be able to come in, fill that hole, and ultimately make UCLA a better team. But again, shooting guard, I think we can move him to small forward. And a projected lineup would look like, Trent Perry at point, Isaiah Johnson at, shooting guard, Miles Bird at small forward, and then Eric Daly Jr. And then obviously the fifth one, I feel like this one could be up to anyone in the portal. We could get Xavier Booker if we don't get, a transfer like that. But the option that I would rather have, right, is going to be Kyle Evans. He is a 6'10" power forward. When I read out his stats, you guys are going to be shocked. I mean, 12.4 points, 9.2 rebounds, 3.7 blocks, while shooting about 60% from the field. That is a player UCLA needs. He's coming from UC Irvine, so again, another Cali kid. That's kind of the overarching theme here, because we know how influential UCLA is on the West Coast. We saw Sky Clark. He didn't sign with UCLA, but he eventually would transfer back to UCLA just because of that presence that UCLA has for these kids in their hometowns. So again, if you're Kyle Evans, I think you want to go to UCLA and tear things up. I mean, look at this 9.2 rebounds. UCLA was ranked 411th in the nation in that stat. Kyle Evans would make that so much better. So that's who I kind of want to see at that 5 position for the Bruins. So again, just to recap, Trent Perry at the point, maybe Isaiah Johnson at shooting guard, Miles Bird at small forward, and then Kyle Evans at, the power forward, the 5 position, and then obviously Eric Daly in there to kind of round off the lineup. I do think Kyle Evans will be that, that center position for UCLA. Him and Booker will switch off. But again, ultimately, I think, UCLA might be a little frugal this transfer portal, because, the pieces are in place. It's just a matter of getting the most out of them. For example, like I said, if Mick Cronin believes Xavier Booker is going to be that guy, he might not want to pursue Kyle Evans. We saw what Booker's capable of. He is probably one of the greatest, 6'10" scorers that I've seen. Obviously, there's ups and downs, but, to be able to shoot 40% from the arc as a 6'10", 5, that is very impressive. And honestly, we've seen him, kind of get better and better as the season progresses at defense. I think he finished the season off with 1.7 blocks. And when Bilodeau went down, there was a lot of peace of mind putting in Booker at that position. But again, we'll have to see how, everything kind of develops throughout the season. So that's really all I have today. 3 guys who I feel like could easily change UCLA. If they get 2 of them, 1 of them, I think UCLA looks like a better team. I'll do one of these, every few days to kind of, give you guys insight of what I think UCLA should be looking to get in the transfer portal. But again, that's all I really have today. Obviously UCLA is rebuilding, so it's going to be interesting to see how that works. So again, thank you very much for watching. I'm your host, Andrew Ferguson. As always, 4's up and have a good day.